We're going live.
I asked, I'm wondering if we want another microphone. No. All right.
Here we go. Alexa, stop.
Welcome to TUC Talks. My name is Tom Disney. I'm a member of the TUC TALK. Also, Glasgow, Nova Scotia. Full disclosure. Our purpose is to present good news stories and ideas to our community with the hope that these talks will stimulate and perhaps generate new initiatives for our talks are secular, open, and free to everyone in the community.
No sound.
I know that there's a lot of folks listening right now trying to figure out why they can't hear Tom. We don't know either, but we're working on it. And this is what happens when we try to do technology sometimes. I'm sure that he's saying wonderful things about our guest speaker. I don't know what they might be. Maybe that he's going to talk about fear and hope and any number of things. A lot of people work to put TUC Talks together. You're hearing Neil Stephen right now. I'm the guest for today, and I have the ability to turn my mic on and make sure you hear me. So until we can hear Tom again, or until he hands things over to me, I'll
Adapted to the
there he
news
is.
of technology. We too, at TUC Talks, had to change our ways in order to bring the talks to you this year. And because of the recent uptick, basically totally online. Pleasure to welcome Neil Stephen, who is our first speaker. Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, where he leads a team of, he calls it 9 storytellers. I would say 9 cohorts to help him in his work at his organization, which is called This Is Marketing. Up in a household where politics were always in conversation and debating around the kitchen table and the dining room table, I suppose. As a young professional, Neil was instrumental in moving institutions like Sir Francis Xavier University onto social media, where they successfully competed for and won the attention of university students all across North America. For more than a decade, Neil has been exploring how technology, big data, and social media, marketing and branding are changing the political landscape around the world. Neil is also a member of Trinity United Church, regularly joining services on Sunday via Zoom and Facebook. Well, Neil, you're your topic, fear and hope, really caught my attention. The four-letter words in politics. One of the things I found out this summer, if I asked the question once or twice, what the hell is going on in the United States? And I put those in quotes because I heard it a number of times. I hope you can shed some light on this.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. I'll take over the video here. I think everybody can hear me. I'm running this Zoom, so let me just go to the gallery view. Thumbs up if you can hear me. Oh, look at all those thumbs. I see a few green thumbs in there too. Right on. I'm going to do something right now. I'm going to mute everyone. And that means you won't have control over your mute button anymore, but I'll mute everyone and then I'll unmute myself and then we'll get started, because that's what Tom was dealing with there. Zoom is good. It just jumps from microphone to microphone. So it was, he was having a tough time there. One moment. Mute all. Okay, so everybody can still hear me. Tom, thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Neil Stephen. I am the owner of This Is Marketing here at 99 Portland Street in downtown Dartmouth. It's a little quiet these days. We're all working basically from home, except myself and my wife. We both trudge down to the office each day. But with what's happening in the world, it's a quiet spot. So it's nice to have so many of you Zoom in or Facebook in tonight. And I'm quite thrilled to be, first just to be asked to speak tonight and to explore this subject that means a lot to me with so many of you. So as I often do, I'm going to go to a screen share and take you all on a bit of a journey here. So I've prepared a few slides and we'll get right into this. If there are any issues and you can't see the slides or something like that, please do speak up either in the chat or unmute yourself and say there's a problem, because I can fix it usually if I know that there's a problem. I will say as well, if you, there's a lot of visual elements to this talk, so you might want to grab your reading glasses or get yourself on a screen that's big enough, that sort of thing, so you can watch and sort of follow along as we go. I've got about 30 minutes here to get through, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end, and about just over 100 slides. 100 slides. That sounds like fun. So here we go. TUC TALK 2020, 2021. Let the season begin. So first thing I want to say is welcome, fear and hope. This is the subject of the chat tonight. These are what I'm referring to now as the four-letter words of politics. If you don't know what I mean by four-letter words, think of other explicitive words that are in our vocabulary that are also four-letter words. Bad words. Fear and hope are I'm theorizing that they're bad words in politics. So let me explain why. That's what this is all about. First, I want to give a quick shout out to Nova Scotia Webcams. Ralph from Nova Scotia Webcams, he's got me on a fancy camera here. I'm looking crisper and cleaner than I normally do. Thank you, Ralph. Nova Scotia Buzz, which is popular in the Pictou County region as well. Thank you to Patrick from Nova Scotia Buzz for helping promote this event and helping me with some of the technical stuff. And for the team at This Is Marketing, that's my team here. It took a while to prepare this, and they really helped me out. They picked up the slack in other areas. So thank you very much to the This Is Marketing crew. And of course, I want to say thank you to my wife, who has helped make time for me to prepare this, and my mother-in-law as well, who really always goes above and beyond to help out in our household as well. So thank you to everyone that really made this possible. And of course, thank you to Lynn Sheridan. Thank you to Donna. Thank you to Tom. Thank you to the whole organizing group that put TUC Talks on. So here we are. Let's get into it. Two more things, two little promos before. Just a reminder that on January 28th, Danny Graham will be presenting the next TUC Talk along with Jamie Smith, who's a board member of Engage Nova Scotia. They're going to be talking about Nova Scotia Quality of Life Initiative. And then the ever popular Nicole LeBlanc, a new counselor in Trenton, and Dr. Aaron Smith will be joining all of you on February 25th to talk about physician recruitment and retention in Pictou County. An incredibly important subject in its own right. So I encourage you all to attend. I'm sure you will. And I hope you enjoy those as well. I'll certainly be watching. Okay, hero, let's get into it. Fear and hope. So hope is a good thing. Oh, wait, I promised Donna I'd record this. So record to the cloud. So fear and hope. Hope is a good thing. I think we can all agree on that. But so is fear. And this is the one that people sometimes don't agree with. But fear is absolutely a good thing. Hope is a good thing, so is fear. That's why I wanted to take these two subjects and these two sort of mindsets and bring them into this conversation. Hope and fear have been present in politics for a very long time. About as long as you can think about politics, hope and fear have been two sides of a coin, and are very normal in our politics and have been for forever, since the body politic began in ancient empires. Fear and hope have been motivators and drivers in all sorts of ways, and they're a good thing. So let's talk about hope. Why is hope a good thing? Well, it inspires. Terry Fox inspired people around the world with his efforts to bring attention to cancer and cancer research. The Freedom Riders brought hope to an entire generation of marginalized and minority groups. The world asked a question about space and space travel, and Canada asked, "What's our role?" And we had hope that we could play a role in this pivotal thing, and we delivered. Our scientific community delivered a really fascinating robotic arm that changed the way we built the space station and have explored outer space for the last 30 years. Hope is a great thing. I love this quote. It's from Andy Dufresne in Shawshank Redemption. Hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. That's Andy Dufresne. As if you know Shawshank Redemption, you know this scene. Interestingly, you may be looking at that Andy Dufresne and saying, that can't be how you spell his last name. But I checked. It absolutely is how you spell his last name. So a little thing you see, you're already learning, right? Andy Dufresne is spelled oddly. So hope is a good thing. We can all pretty much agree on that. It's not a surprise. Hope is a good thing. But what about fear? Fear's good too.
You too.
What do I mean by fear is good too? Well, I want to tell you the story of the construction of the Alaska Highway. It's sometimes referred to as the Alcan Highway. So if you do a Google search of Alaska Highway construction, these are the images that you're going to see. But the Alaska Highway was built over 2,400 kilometers. 2,400 kilometers. That is unbelievable. It's kind of unfathomable, really, that the size of that. What makes it truly amazing is that it was built in less than a year. Less than a year. 2,400 kilometers. A long time ago. This was a quote from it was built by about 10,000 military men, United States and Canadian military men. Here's a quote from one of them. The Alaska Highway, winding in and winding out, fills my mind with serious doubt as to whether the lout that planned this route was going to hell or coming out. That's kind of how people wrote back then. I spent some time in the North. My wife and I lived in the North for 4 years, and there's all sorts of poetry like that in the North. This crazy idea to build a road that long through that kind of terrain in less than a year, 2,400 kilometers. And it's crazy terrain. On a normal day in the winter, the Yukon can easily be the coldest place on Earth. They got a brewery up there. I used to work there. I made this logo. And their slogan is, beer worth freezing for. Amazingly accurate slogan for how freaking cold it is up there. And they built the highway 2,400 kilometers long in less than a year. But you can't forget the mosquitoes. Oh my God, the mosquitoes in the summer. You cannot forget the mosquitoes, 2,400 kilometers in less than a year. So why did they do all this? What caused them to do this crazy thing, to achieve this unbelievable feat? Ben Affleck, obviously, as always the cause of giant motivation. No, the real reason was Pearl Harbor. The attack on Pearl Harbor changed the way the Canadian government and the American government saw that part of the world, that northern BC, Yukon, and Alaska part of the world. So why did we do all this? Fear of a mainland attack. Pearl Harbor was decimated by a single attack by the Japanese. And that got everyone understanding just how vulnerable Canada and North America on the West Coast actually was. So fear precipitated the desire to build the Alaska Highway. The reason they did that is all along the Alaska Highway, out in the middle of nowhere, they built airfields. And this was required in order to achieve air superiority. So that, and why would you want to do that? Let me show you. This is a map of the proposed Alaska Highway route. And in black there, right in the middle, is the state of Alaska, as you can see. Now let's zoom in. We zoom in, I've circled Alaska in blue. In red above that, that's Russia. Well, that's Serbia, it's the Soviet Union. And all those little black circles are airfields, places where airplanes can take off and fly towards North America. So very vulnerable, very much at risk. And then of course, all along the Western coastline, there was very little defense from any sort of attack. We needed air superiority. Fear got something done that was crazy impressive, 2,400 kilometers. And not only that, the Alaska Highway and the building of the Alaska Highway is largely credited with desegregating the American military. Few people realize that, but the first place where Black American and white American soldiers worked together was on building this giant highway. Now, it wasn't all good, of course. What's the good of desegregating? Well, what did that look like? Of course, the Black soldiers were given all the hand tools. They were asked to sleep in tents, and they were not allowed in town. Shocking. And all the white folks, yep, no problem. Here's all the machines. You can sleep in wooden houses, and you're obviously allowed in town anytime you want. That was progress at the time. That's what fear was able to achieve. Kind of a big deal. 2,400 kilometers, desegregation of the military, progress, all rooted in fear. Fear can be a good thing, okay? Hope is a good thing, fear is a good thing. But a quick note, when you do things out of fear, it doesn't always produce your best work. So for instance, the highway was 2,400 kilometers, but in modern day, the highway's actually shrunk to 2,232 kilometers, almost a full 200 kilometers shorter. Why? Because they've fixed it. A whole bunch of areas where it was winding, they straightened it. They made it a better highway, and they saved a whole bunch of kilometers. So it was built quickly, but it wasn't necessarily the smartest way to build. But it got done, and fear was the catalyst. Fear of another attack. Fear can be a good thing. But to be effective, and this is the crux of what I want to chat with you all tonight about, is that fear and hope, really, to be effective, those two things need reality. Without reality, we're in trouble. Without reality, fear and hope are dangerous. Let that sink in for a moment. Without reality, fear and hope are dangerous. So what do I mean? Well, let's say Neil opens Neil's Sardine Sandwich Shop. You can already taste how delicious these sardine sandwiches are going to be. But there's some problems here. For one, I have no training in anything food related. I have a terrible sense of taste. I have absolutely no interest in cooking or baking or anything like that. It brings me no joy. I have no natural ability in this area, zero patience, and absolutely no time to do anything of this sort. Yet I still hope that my sardine sandwich shop is going to take off. See, hope can be a dangerous thing too. Hope is a dangerous thing. Hope can drive a man insane. That's what Ellis Redding said in Shawshank Redemption. So we got Andrew Dufresne saying hope's a good thing. We got Ellis Redding saying it's a bad thing. Remember, Andy, the best of things and no good thing ever dies. The truth is fear and hope are good and bad. That's the way it's always been. What's interesting about Shawshank Redemption is that at the end of the movie, the most fearful man, the character played by Morgan Freeman, this is how the movie ends. Listen to what he says about hope.
I find I'm so excited I can barely sit still or hold a thought in my head. I think it's the excitement only a free man can feel. A free man at the start of a long journey whose conclusion is uncertain. I hope I can make it across the border. I hope to see my friend and shake his hand. I hope the Pacific is as blue as it has been in my dreams. I hope.
A few people realize I hope are the last two words. Andy sees his friend. Keep going. So hope, I mean, if you think of Morgan Freeman's character, he goes from not believing in hope at all, saying it's a dangerous thing, it can drive a man insane, to feeling completely different about hope because his circumstances have changed. Fear and hope are good and bad, but fear and hope need reality. Are you seeing a trend here? Are you seeing me repeating? That's what communicators do. They repeat, they repeat, they repeat. I have a theory, and I think it's a real problem. We have lost our shared reality. So if you remember, fear and hope need reality. But I'm theorizing tonight that we have basically lost our shared reality. The first step in solving any problem is recognizing that there is one. And I think that we have a real problem. Digital connectivity lets us choose the reality that feels good to us. It lets us avoid the medicine. It lets us avoid reality, the truth, facts. Digital connectivity allows us to surround ourselves with the reality that feels good. In short, we choose the reality that feels good. So what do I mean by this? Well, step one, I'm going to do a little test here. You can do it at home. You can just, you just enjoy yourself, relax, grab a cup of tea. We're going to do this. I'm going to show you a series of statements, and I'm going to give you a quick explanation of each one. And there are going to be statements that come up on the screen that you absolutely disagree with, and there's going to be some that you totally agree with. And I'm going to show you which camp you reside in and likely why. Here we go. So here's a statement. Healthcare is a human right. Most people believe that. A lot of people believe that. Not everybody. Not everybody believes it in those exact words, but healthcare is a human right is a thing that a lot of people believe. The second one, there is so much waste. Oh my gosh, government. There's so much waste in government. They're corrupt and they spend money stupidly and they're inefficient, and government is the problem. There is so much waste. Another statement, science is real. It's surprising to me that that is a debatable topic, but it absolutely, in 2020, is a debatable topic. Science is real. Another one, public healthcare sucks. You've heard this before? Absolutely. Of course you've heard it before. Another one, this is the one that we hear all the time, jobs in the economy. It's important to do this for jobs in the economy. Well, we have to protect jobs in the economy. We're in the COVID moment. We have a global pandemic, and we're balancing public safety with jobs in the economy. Next one, only climate. Only climate refers to folks who look at all political issues and say, climate first, none of those things matter until we address climate. And that is a field of view. There are people who believe that. Another one, immigration is the problem. Now that can be tough, especially for this audience. This is the Trinity United. This is a TUC Talk. Trinity United is just inspiringly tied to and builders of the Safe Harbor movement, which has embraced immigration in a major way and has shown all of Pictou County the benefits of immigration. But a lot of people don't see it that way. A lot of people see immigration as the problem, and they actually connect immigration with jobs in the economy. People see things differently. There's more. Another one, we're running out of people. Now, this is the opposite side of immigration. This is the perspective that we desperately need immigration into Atlantic Canada, and Canada in general needs immigration for our economy to remain strong as our population ages. That's a field of view. That's a perspective. Another one, use our own freaking oil. We got oil in this country. Why are we sending it elsewhere? Why don't we use our own oil? People believe that. People believe that education is partisan. So you get a liberal arts degree and universities produce a whole bunch of people who are left-leaning and partisan, and that's the problem. And other people believe that corporations need reform. These giant corporations have too much influence. Oh, somebody's coming into the waiting room. There we go. These giant corporations have too much influence, too much power, and they need to be reformed. And then other people believe that the marketplace is the answer to everything. Some people believe Black Lives Matter. Other people believe all lives matter. There are all kinds of issues. This is just a simple, small sampling of perspectives, beliefs that are held by people across the country and across North America. Here's another one. Coming to a city near you, this debate, masks. In the United States in particular, an incredibly divisive subject now. Do I have to wear a mask? Should I wear a mask? Okay, so that's step one. So step one, there are these statements, political perspective statements. So now step two, let's choose our content suppliers. So what do I mean by content suppliers? Well, we all consume media. We consume CBC television, we consume CTV, we consume up here in the city, maybe we're listening to Q104, maybe you're listening to the Big Dog down in Pictou County, streaming and picking up the broadcast from Truro. Maybe you're on the internet and you're watching Al Jazeera, maybe you're watching OAN. There's a whole bunch of folks who are creating content and supplying it to you via your televisions, via your radio, and via your computers or your smartphones. They run the gamut. Tonight, we're going to focus on media content suppliers. So here's an example of content suppliers. Fox News, Breitbart, Newsmax, OAN, One America News. And I put the Rebel in there. That's a Canadian one. So there's this perspective. This would be referred to as the far right. And then there's this perspective. This is the far left. This is the progressive perspective. Huffington Post, Occupy Democrats, Daily Kos, BuzzFeed. There's a bunch more. And there's a bunch more on the far right too. This is just a quick sampling. So here's step 3. I'm going to predict something. I believe that I can predict what storylines from before resonate with you right now based on the media you consume. So let's try it. If this is the media that you consume, if you've been watching Fox News or you're regularly looking at Breitbart or you like Newsmax TV or OAN, here are the messages that are going to resonate with you. Here's how you see things. There is so much waste in government and public health care sucks. We need to take care of jobs in the economy, and immigration is a big part of that problem. We need to start using our own freaking oil, and education's got to stop being so partisan. We need to reform that. I'm telling you right now, the market is the answer and all lives matter. That's the perspective of someone consuming this content on a regular basis. I don't care if it's right or wrong. It's where we are. That's their perspective. Now, someone who's consuming this content or Canadian versions of this type of content, they may see these issues like this. Healthcare is absolutely a human right, and science is real. And because science is real, climate change is the only thing that we really ought to be stressed about. And we absolutely need to make room in this country for more immigrants because we're running out of people here, and we need to create a more fair world. Part of making a more fair world and a more fair Canada is to address corporations and their excessive power. And you better believe that Black Lives Matter. Same issues, different focus, different perspective. We do not have a shared reality. So what about masks, right? This is the big one. Well, if science to you isn't real, isn't to be trusted, is something that comes from a different perspective than you, well, then this whole COVID thing could be a hoax. And that's all it takes. A little bit of doubt, a little bit of reasoning, a little bit of rationale to disagree. If science isn't real, COVID's a hoax. What's the problem? I don't need to wear a mask. I choose a reality where masks equal government control. And I don't believe in that, so I'm not wearing a mask. And that's what we see happening in the United States, in large part. Just one small example of how things occur. It's also happening much more regularly in Western Canada, particularly Saskatchewan and Alberta. And it has a lot to do with the media that they consume and their perspective on the subject of masks as a result. We have lost our shared reality. The idea that masks could be debatable is the perfect example. And it's unbelievable to see it actually happen. But it's real. It's real, and it's where we are today. We have lost our shared reality. The truth is we choose the reality that feels good, that reinforces our perspective. So what about Canada? What about our media bias? What are we consuming? Well, if you Google news media bias chart Canada, here's what you see, a whole bunch of charts. So let's look at the very first chart. Boom, there you go, first chart. So this is a chart about media bias in Canada. Here we go. Here are a bunch of news publications in Canada. And we see on the left-hand side, most extreme liberal. And then over to the right-hand side, partisan conservative, extreme conservatism over on the right. So according to this chart, the Globe and Mail is extremely liberal. CBC News is extremely liberal, as is Maclean's, Star, Huffington Post, Global News, CTV. CTV, according to this, skews liberal. And the Toronto Sun is pretty neutral, according to this chart. Interesting chart. But what is more interesting is when you read into the history of this chart and where it came from. Here's a quote from a person who did a little bit of digging. They said, "I did come across a biased chart of Canadian news media. However, based on the attached tweet and other information surrounding the tweet, I question whether it is based on objective data or whether it actually represents a bias inherent in the poster or the artist who created it." So let's take a look at this Twitter link. Let's see the person who created this chart. Let's click on the link. Boom, here we go. Okay, so I see right away, maybe they're a liberal because I see that liberal logo, interesting, okay? And I see Barry, patriot equals racist. Whoa, what does that mean? So let's zoom in. Barry, patriot versus equals racist. This is a guy who is standing up for what he feels is ridiculous, which is if someone is to describe themselves to be a patriot, then people on the progressive left see them as racist because that's the way that they have that narrative in their head. So what is that image at the top? Well, liberal, vote for us or you're a racist. This is actually how a lot of people feel. A lot of people who are uncomfortable with Black Lives Matter, who are uncomfortable with changing demographics, who don't understand or maybe haven't seen the full scope of change and why it matters and the history of our country and understanding how we're a country of immigrants and how we're very diverse to begin with. There's a community on the internet that feels as though who they are is being ripped apart. And if they think the way that they've been taught to think their whole life, they're now suddenly a racist out of nowhere. So this is an example of that community fighting back. They're saying liberals are all the same. You either believe what they believe or they'll call you a racist. That's what this image is saying. So I've amended it. I've just made a little tweak here. Really, it's liberal. Vote for us or vote for someone else. That's basically it. That's the actual truth. And the same thing could be said about a conservative logo or a New Democrat logo, a Bloc Québécois logo, a Green Party logo. I've never met a single person in politics in my entire life who is actively involved in politics who isn't pretty open-minded and accepting of other people's perspectives. Usually what they all care about is that you actually take part and that you vote in general. Maybe you vote for them, maybe you don't. But this is how most people in the political world feel, regardless of politics. But if you consume media the way we consume media now, and there is no more shared reality, it's easy to make it seem hyper-partisan. So, of course, this is Barry. Of course, Barry would create this chart. So Barry is a hyper-partisan person who sees the world through the conservative lens. And so he has put the Globe and Mail and CBC News as most extreme liberal. Any objective look at media bias in this country would say that this is largely inaccurate. This is a very inaccurate chart. Here's a better one. Now, this has all kinds of problems as well. I mean, none of this is perfect. And frankly, there isn't a lot published about this subject in Canada like there is in the United States. But here's a quick look at what it's like in Canada. So on the left-hand side, we see the Huffington Post, the T, which is a publication, a newspaper in BC. So on the left-hand side, the publications that are sort of loose with the facts are Huffington Post and the T. There's a few others, Vice maybe you could throw in there, maybe not, depends. On the far right, though, there's a few more. The absolute worst in the country would be Rebel News. It's hugely inaccurate on a regular basis, and they know it, and that's just part of what they do. Also, the Post Millennial, the Toronto Sun, the Edmonton Sun, the Sun Network in general is very conservative, very far right. And then the Financial Post, although I don't know if I put the Financial Post down there, it's pretty good. The National, so what are the sort of the more moderate? Left versus right? Well, these are brands that we would be familiar with. The Ottawa Citizen, CBC News, Maclean's, Montreal Gazette, CTV. So CTV is a little bit right of center and CBC is left of center, but they're pretty accurate, both of them. They have a bit of a spin, but not that biased. And that's the Canadian media landscape in a nutshell. It certainly is not this, not even close to this. But if you're Barry and you believe this, and you create this piece of content, other people who agree with you are going to find it and they are going to love it because it will reinforce what they think already. We get to choose the reality we want in 2020. So the truth is, so now I've talked a little bit about media, and I got to be honest, I found it really difficult narrowing my thinking here because this could take 3 hours to dig into all of these things and why they exist the way they exist. but I tried to keep it simple. So I've talked a bit about media and how media shapes things. Now I want to talk to you about digital technology and its impact. So the truth is that we are spoon-fed feel-good content. Feel-good content. So what do I mean by feel-good content? Well, feel-good content, most of what we see on the internet, in our social media feed, so on our Facebook, in our YouTube feed, on Instagram and Reddit and all these platforms. You may have heard of these, you may have not. Facebook's the most common example, but feel-good content on Facebook, it reinforces your existing opinion. It's always simple and straightforward. It's never complex. It makes it as simple as possible. And we see a lot of this coming out of conservative politicians now. They create videos that make complex issues super simple because they know it riles up their base. It's going to be interesting to see when conservatives form government next, to see if liberals behave the same way. I hope that they don't, because it's not good for anybody. It'll be interesting to see. But it's always, feel-good content is always portrayed as really simple and straightforward. Like, it's so obvious. These people are dumb. Why couldn't they get it? Feel-good content never challenges us. It never gives you something that makes you doubt your opinion or your perspective. That doesn't feel good. The idea that maybe you're not right, oh, that's a terrible idea. We don't like that. So we never see that sort of content. And it always plays on an us versus them mentality, because we love the idea of teams. We love the idea of tribes. I'm on the conservative tribe. I'm on the progressive tribe. And it's all those other people's fault. So feel-good content always plays on us versus them. So we are spoon-fed good content by social media networks like Facebook and Instagram, etc. Why do they do this? Here's why they do it. Super, super simple. Social media's only goal is to keep your attention. That's it. If you're watching on Facebook right now, and you've been watching from the start, we've achieved the goal. We've kept your attention. The goal of Facebook is to keep your attention as long as humanly possible, and to make it so you really want to come back to that smartphone app and open it up and see what people are saying, see what people are commenting, and see how people are reacting to the things that you have said. The little red notification icon, that is like a little endorphin trip. It makes the brain excited. It's akin, there have been studies that show a very clear comparison to the injection of heroin or cocaine, and the same feelings that your brain creates, the same stimulus as when you see a notification to something you've posted online. It's addictive, and social media is designed to be addictive. All they want to do is keep your attention. So of course they feed you all the things that they know you're going to love. So what social media does is it uses math to customize the content you see. Trust the algorithm, the big giant mathematical equation. So how does this work? Well, social media's only goal is to keep your attention. Remember that. So how do they do it? Well, they calculate what you like. They're paying very close attention. Now, no individual is. It's all computerized. It's all done automatically, instantly, and it's done by what's referred to as AI, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence calculates what you like. Then it gives you more stuff like that, because they know when they give you stuff that they know you like, they are certain that you're going to stay longer, and all they want is your attention. Do you remember when Facebook only had the like option? That was it. You could like and comment, and that was it. And then people would say, I wish they had a dislike button. Well, the engineers at Facebook took it one further. They said, let's add a love button, let's add a laugh button, let's add a wow button, let's add a sad button, and an angry button. And we were happy. We were happy when they let us better describe how we felt. So I don't necessarily like this. It makes me upset, or I love it, or it makes me sad, or I'm surprised by it. Let's give them the tools to describe how they feel. And we loved it. We ate it up. But what we did is we improved their ability to keep our attention. Not only does Facebook know what we like now, Facebook knows what makes us angry. exactly what makes us angry. They know exactly what we love, what surprises us, and what we share and why, and what we say about it when we do share it. There was an event for this, for TUC Talks tonight. A lot of people shared it. Facebook paid attention to what you shared. And because you shared something from Trinity United's Facebook page, you'll see more stuff from Trinity United as a result. That, by the way, is why Trinity United for the last several months has been publishing content every week. It's to get into your mathematical equation so they're part of the conversation. That's why we've been doing it. That is an example of trying to use social media for good. So by doing this, by adding this, all these options, they've allowed themselves to better understand how to keep your attention and to sell that information to giant corporations. So remember, good content feels so good. It doesn't challenge us. It reinforces what we already think. It purposely pits us versus them. And it's always simple and straightforward with no complexity. It feels so good. That is the reality of social media. So an example of this, how does this play out in the real world? Well, we have a very interesting and very recent example. Let's say that the Fox News channel says your reality didn't win the election. This has happened in the last 2 weeks. Fox News has said to millions of people that their reality isn't real, that they didn't win the election. And what has happened? Goodbye, Fox. Hello, Newsmax. This is a real thing that has occurred in the last 2 weeks. If you know anyone who was a supporter of the right side candidate in the last election in the United States, they may also tell you that they don't watch Fox anymore. Fox is garbage. Well, Fox interrupted their narrative. Fox made it complex. Fox didn't reinforce your opinion. Fox challenged you. And now what we're seeing is a pretty large exodus of people following Fox and consuming its content on social media, and a move to far right outlets like Newsmax, which is another platform you can go on their website and also across all social media channels. And in that world, the winner of the election better aligns with the reality that is held by folks who believe that the current president is going to remain president. I'm going to extreme lengths not to use any names. So, how does all this work? It's confusing. I'm sorry if you're confused. I'm trying my best to make it simple, but the reality is, if you believe in Breitbart, which is a far right perspective, or Daily Kos, which is a far left perspective, what these content producers do is they create actual website content, news articles and videos. They have TV or on-air personalities, and all of those folks have their own Facebook pages and Instagram accounts and YouTube channels. These publications have guests that they invite on to their programs, and those guests all produce content and put that out onto social media. The shows themselves all have their own Facebook page, they have their own YouTube channel, and people subscribe to those channels and get those videos directly from the content creators. And then worst of all, because that group is pretty persuasive, but it's small. The worst part is amateur content creators who watch this stuff and then sit in front of their computer, just like I'm doing right now, with a camera, staring at that camera, and they say their opinion. And it reinforces the beliefs that they have held and the beliefs that they've been reading and watching and listening to. And so it creates a pretty crazy web of content. This is a digital content web from the 2016 United States election. The red is obviously far right leaning, blue is far left leaning. So you see some of the publications, but there are literally millions of data points represented in this graphic. Every blog post, every status update, every piece of content that was created in the political conversation is captured right here. We get to choose the reality we want now. There is no such thing as a shared reality, and that means hope and fear have become dangerous words in the political landscape. Fear and hope. That's why they're four-letter words. Fear keeps us watching, while hope picks a side. Fear keeps us watching, while hope picks a side. Progressives, or liberals, or New Democrats, whatever you want to call them, they fear the hopes of conservatives. And conservatives fear the hopes of progressives. That's the world that we're currently living in. Without a shared reality, fear and hope are four-letter words in politics. Fear and hope have been around a long time in politics, but they've become four-letter words, dangerous words that are hugely problematic because we no longer have a shared reality. So, I showed you something I wasn't supposed to show you. So 1 second here. I'll stop my screen share, come back to me. Thank you for sticking with us through all that. Hope you enjoyed it. TUC stands for Transformative Upbeat Conversations. So I want to talk a bit about where we are and what we can do. And I'm going to describe my first trip into downtown Halifax on a bus. I grew up in Lower Sackville, which if you're familiar with the area is just outside of town. And I hopped in the 82. We took the 82 to the Cobequid terminal and we jumped on the 80. We took the 80 all the way along the Bedford Highway, right down to Barrington Street, Scotia Square Mall. We got off the 80 and waited. We didn't go anywhere, we waited. And then all of a sudden there it was, the number one coming down, pulled right up and we got on. Neil went to the back of the bus and looked, oh, right on, I'm on a big bus. This is so cool, I'm in the big city. And we start driving down Barrington Street. And about, maybe we made one stop, maybe two stops. And then all of a sudden, I was shocked. I was on a magic bus. The whole time I was on a magic bus and I didn't even know it. There I am sitting at the back of the bus and all of a sudden, whoop, half the people on the bus, gone. They're gone. And then they came back. And that's when I realized, show you here. That's when I realized I was on a slinky bus and I didn't know it, but I was on a slinky bus. And just for those paying attention, right there, that's Barrington Street. So I was on a slinky bus going down Barrington Street and I didn't know that. And so when the bus made the turn, half the people on the bus just gone. And it blew me away as a little kid. I thought, oh my God, this is crazy. So why do I mention this? Well, just to be clear, this is the magic bus that I'm talking about. See how it turns the corner and then you can't see? So you say, Neil, I stuck with you this far. Why are you talking about a magic bus? Well, I want to end here on a bit of an upbeat note. And this concept came from a good chat with one of my best friends, George. And we talked about how when the bus goes around the turn, we can't see people who disagree with us. They're on the other end of the bus. But then it straightens out again and we can see them. So for a brief moment, they're gone. And that's how politics have been my whole life. Those turns, those are elections. We make a turn, and then all of a sudden we're going again. Buses are designed to go straight. The slinky buses are designed to go straight. But what has happened is because of the media that we consume and the technology that makes it easy for us to consume it and not see other perspectives, we have completely forgotten that there are other people on this bus. It's in a perpetual state of turn. And we're looking at each other saying, why isn't this working? Why is government failing? Why are politics failing us? Why is this not working? It's because government and politics and governance is not designed to always be in a constant state of turn. It's designed to hear one another, to see one another, to seek to understand one another, not always agree, but at least try. We're living in a time where not only are we not seeing each other, not trying to understand each other, not appreciating one another, we're not even aware that the other world is there anymore. So my suggestion to anyone who is tired of divisiveness, who is tired of politics the way that it is today, I have two suggestions. One, look at your own media consumption. Is it challenging you? Is it showing you things that you didn't know? Is it making you question anything? Is it super straightforward and easy to understand? Those are all signs that the content you're consuming is not diverse enough. You have to make an effort to see and understand other people's perspectives. And that goes for progressives as much as it goes for conservatives. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you can choose to make a conscious effort to sit in the middle of the bus. Not on every subject, not on every policy issue, but on lots of them. And you can make an effort to hear another person's perspective and be a way that that message can be communicated to those who don't share that perspective. We need more people in the center of that bus, desperately. I don't quite know how else we get out of this. There's one other way that that could go a long way to addressing this problem. One other thing that could go a long way to addressing this problem, and that is reform of our social media platforms. I showed you the example during the presentation of going from the like button to all of those other options for engagement. Really, really smart people work at Facebook. And if a government were to demand that the content we consume on Facebook be intentionally diverse, that it avoid this siloed nature, Facebook would have to adapt, and it would force us to see perspectives that don't agree with our existing viewpoint. That could literally change the world. 15 years ago, I was writing about how Twitter was going to change the world. I think it was about 15 years ago. People didn't even know what Twitter was, and I was writing in my campus newspaper how it was going to change everything. I was full of hope. But now I see the danger side of that hope, the blind spot. Yes, it has changed the world. Yes, it has helped us see how the world thinks, but it also has allowed us to choose our reality. And when we get to choose our own realities and no one has a shared one, hope and fear become very dangerous things. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed that. I know I went long. Donna's definitely not surprised that I went long. My apologies. So that's it. That's my perspective. And hopefully we can go back to Tom at Trinity and go back to him, unpin this video. There we go. I'm ready for questions now. There's a chat function. I can't see actually what's happening on Facebook, so I need someone. There's Tom. Hey, Tom. So I see a question. I'll just jump into some of these questions. I see a question from Maria. Until we can hear Tom. So Maria asks, "What is your opinion on the media is the message, underlining our definition of media and our personal sense of reality and politics?" I would agree that the media absolutely can be the message in terms of conveying importance or perspective. I think that the brand of media has become really problematic, and it has gone from the media itself being the message to the brand of that media being the primary message, and that's hugely problematic. So that's one question. I see a couple other questions. When did we last have a shared reality, and how did that unravel? So that Kevin asks, when did we last have a shared reality, and how did that unravel? You know, you could go through history, and there's all sorts of moments of a loss of shared reality. If you go back to the time of the printing press, for instance, the most comparable analog to the digital movement that we're experiencing today is the introduction of the printing press. And sometimes people hear that and they say, oh, well, we had television, we had radio, those were big deals, but they actually are not comparable. The printing press took us from a time when you had to know how to read and write in order to read anything, and there was no ability to replicate anything. And all of a sudden we could standardize, we could replicate, and it changed the way we shared information. Television and radio, they broadened the group of people who could do that, but you still had to invest a ton of resources into creating the radio station, creating the television broadcast. The internet changed everything. Everyone's smartphone turned us all into radio producers, television producers, and the internet is how we find that information. Social media took all that information and made it pipe right into our veins, the information that we wanted, that agreed with our world perspective. So the last time that we had a shared reality, I think if you look at early 2000s, there was broad consensus that climate change was real and it needed to be addressed. Broad consensus. And there were a variety of things like that where we had some broad consensus. So I think that a much truer sense of a shared reality, the closest time would have been the very early 2000s, before the advent of social media. Social media has been disastrous on this subject. I'm just going to keep going unless somebody wants to pipe up and ask me some questions, but I'll keep going, keep reading these things. So Hannah Green asks, how do folks navigate their social media or other media outlets to listen to other perspectives while also resisting the systems of oppression that tend to further benefit right-leaning narratives? Well, Hannah, I'm going to say one thing. There are systems of oppression that totally benefit left-leaning narratives too. So start there. Start with your own question and realize that it's true. Maybe it's more of an issue on the right, but it is also an issue on the left. But it's a good question overall. How do you do this? How do you consume media that is diverse without being co-opted by it? Well, I think you got to try. You have to have a sense of your own values, what's important to you, and you have to have empathy. Empathy is unbelievably important in addressing this situation. What we're seeing more of now is when someone disagrees with another person on social media, they cut them off. They stop following them, or they cut them out of their life, they unfriend them. And that is terribly ineffective. Not effective at all. It doesn't solve the problem. Another thing that doesn't work is challenging other people's perspective and fighting with them. The very best thing you can do is empathize with them, try to understand the perspective, and genuinely try to understand it. So a good way to measure are you actually giving time to another person's perspective is in your own ability to voice their perspective back to them. Really good politicians are great at this. They may have, and frankly, you're all in Central Nova, your MP is excellent at this. Your member of parliament can articulate the conservative perspective on almost everything, and he can do it with respect and empathy. And that's very rare. It's one of the reasons that he's liked, is because he's not very offensive and he's empathetic towards other people who don't share his viewpoint. That's something that we can all bring into our day-to-day lives. I don't know if I really answered that question there, Hannah. It's a really good question. You just got to pay attention is the best way, and try to not go too far, and keep touch with your own reality. And it's actually not that hard. It's just a matter of making the effort to do it. Okay, Jim McKenna asks, platforms like Facebook and Twitter are fact-checking posts. Do you think that this is the answer to fake news, or is there another solution? It's a very good question. So we're starting to see platforms who are coming out and basically censoring certain types of things, or they're putting warnings on content. Donald Trump is furious about this, for instance. Oh, I said his name. Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to not say any politician's name, except yeah. Anyway, the current American president is furious about this new change, Jim, as I'm sure you know. And I think that it is something that can be done in the short term, sure. But the better solution is to find a way to avoid the polarization to begin with, to ensure that you aren't only giving content in your social feed that you agree with. So let me unpack that for a minute. So let's say you have 200 friends on Facebook. Facebook can't possibly show you all of their updates all the time because there's not enough room in your feed, right? And a whole bunch of stuff you might not be that interested in. So they call that and curate it so you only see stuff that they know is going to resonate with you. So there's hundreds of things you never even see that are from people in your community, in your network. And that is very much by design. It's by, it's intentional. Businesses experience this in a different way. Businesses can't access the people who follow them on Facebook and on YouTube and on Instagram unless they pay, right? So Facebook absolutely has the power to change the content that you see, to make things visible that you wouldn't normally see with the current algorithms. They have the ability to do that. I think that is a far superior way. But honestly, I think the best way is to engage engineers within these corporations and ask them to get involved to try to address the problem, because they're super smart and they know their platforms better than anyone. And I remember when it was just the like button and people said, I wish there was a dislike button, and Facebook announced that they were working on it. I mean, this is what I do for a living. I pay close attention to all of this work for my job. And I remember thinking, what are they going to do? How are they going to make this work? And all of a sudden they came out with a variety of options that was very easy to use. And it was genius. Engagement went through the roof. These platforms know how to do this. They're manipulating us now, and they know how to not manipulate us. It's really up to them, and it's really up to us to pressure them to make change. That's what some politicians mean when they say we need to break up these monopolies, these social media monopolies. This is largely what they're talking about. I'm going to try to keep going here. If there's questions on Facebook, I can't see those questions, so maybe someone could speak up, but I'll just keep going here until somebody stops me. Maria asks, what part do you think the immediate gratification plays in consuming specific bias in media? Oh, Maria, it's so critical. I mentioned how a notification, when you get that ding, when you get that notification, it's like a drug. This has been proven. There's been quite a bit of research into this subject. You can Google it, take a look. We are very much addicted to our smartphones, and in particular, social media. And what we're addicted to is the feeling of community, the feeling of agreement, right? That's why we don't want to follow things that we disagree with. It's very uncomfortable. I make a point almost on a daily basis of going to Breitbart's website, Fox News' website. I've added OAN to the equation, and I've added Newsmax to the equation, because I want to see what I don't understand. I want to see the perspective that I don't happen to share, because I want to try to understand it. When it comes to that immediate gratification, social media is all about immediate gratification. It's a huge component to it, Maria. It's a really good question. It plays a massive role in the problem. Okay, Donna asked a question. Reverend Donna says, in the business of faith, hope and fear are often used, yet religion is becoming very polarized. Do you see any correlation? Okay, so I absolutely do. There's absolutely a correlation, and it's just the way we consume content, right? So whether it's about politics or it's about religion or it's about sports, name the subject, polarization is happening in the subject because of how we consume the information we get. What's different about, what I think is different, a little bit different anyway, between faith and politics and government is that faith, the whole idea of faith is faith. It's believing. It's believing in a reality not seen, you know, and I'm sure Ferris and David McPherson are watching this thinking, Neil, it's not like that, but I don't know. I'm just trying to simplify it. So it really is the idea of what we can't see. We have to have faith. And so polarization plays a very different role there. Technology and social media plays a very different role. Politics really shouldn't be that entertaining. If you've ever been involved in a campaign, the actual work of a campaign is pretty boring. Let's go make 300 phone calls. That's not that interesting. Governance is even more boring. Let's sit for 3 weeks and try to write a piece of policy. And then let's try to put that policy through all the layers of government so it may or may not ever become law. Really, really boring. Hope and fear, they should only really show up during campaigns. And they should be within the realm of inspiration and caution. Instead, hope and fear have an everyday presence in our politics. And that's totally out of whack. It shouldn't really be like that at all. It should be reserved for just campaigns and elections. So, but faith, I mean, faith is really largely on an everyday basis about hope and believing. So I see them as different. But I think that in terms of the polarization that you may be noticing in the faith community, it has a lot to do with the media people are consuming. Very connected to the subject. Hey, Tom.
How are you? I'm sorry about the trouble getting on at the beginning.
That's all good.
And I thought it was a great presentation, Neil, and I think it's a very good question. Then I thought the high quality of the questions really amplifies the importance of this TUC TALK. I want to thank you very, very much for it. We usually try to do it within 1 hour. This has been our model over the years. So tonight I'm going to ask that we wrap it up, and we'd like any communications with the people watching, and hope that we have one more space at the end of our TUC TALK season. And if you have some good ideas, send them in to us and we'll look at them. So thank you again, and folks, we'll see you again. Bye.
Right on.
Somebody's talking. Okay.